Hey, Chichi.
Hey, good morning, Nadine.
Good morning. So lovely to see you here and to have you here. And oh my gosh, we were talking about how did we come into contact, and you wonderfully sent me an email saying, that you're doing Chineke was doing their second concert at the Royal Festival Hall, and that you were creating this chorus of amazing singers, and you just wanted all of us to come together and just celebrate. And what an event that was.
It was a spine-tingling event, wasn't it?
I mean, I have to say, myself, we'd finished singing and we went upstairs to listen to the second half of the concert. And I was sitting next to Ronald Sam, and bless him, like I was crying.
Oh, really?
The whole way through the concert. I was so moved by the excellence, the quality, the energy. Oh, thank you.
Oh, that's very moving to hear, because, we're on stage. I mean, actually, by the end of the Sibelius Finlandia that you sang in, with all the chorus standing in the aisles of the Royal Festival Hall, the last two lines of my music, it was a blur because the tears were pouring down my face because of the way you guys lifted the roof with your voices as well, because I'm very emotional, because the theme in the middle of that overture, the Finlandia, was used as the Biafran national anthem during the Civil War.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a melody I've known all my life.
Yes, wow. Well, it's 9:01. Good morning. I am Benjamin, and I am the intuitive Barrie Soprano. Good morning, Lena. Happy morning to you, but you as well, my darling. I'm intuitive, and Susan, morning. I'm intuitive Barrie Soprano, and I'm a certified NLP mind coach. I'm a certified high performance coach, and I'm a healer. And I'm also a professional opera singer who loves singing all over the world. So this morning, one of my passions, as we all know by now, is connecting, celebrating and championing people. And we're here to celebrate this morning double bassist Chichi Nwanoku OBE. She studied at the Royal Academy of Music, where she is a professor and fellow with Franco Petracchi in Rome. She is the founder, artistic and executive director of the Chineke Foundation, which encourages diversity in the classical music industry through its orchestras, the Chineke Orchestra and Chineke Junior Orchestra, and its community engagement work. Chichi has been instrumental in creating opportunities for talented Black and minority ethnic musicians through concerts, commissioning new works, champion historical BME composers, and by establishing scholarships with the major UK conservatoires. What a pleasure it is to have you here today.
It's a real thrill to be invited. I've been watching your interviews.
Morning, Tanya. So as I always say to everybody this morning, Chichi and I, neither of us are doctors or psychiatrists, medical doctors or psychiatrists. I should make that right, because you could have a doctorate. But please, if you do need help or support at this time, please pick up the phone and reach out to someone, or let someone know that you're not okay. If you know someone who's really shy in that department and you feel that they could need a bit of support or a helping hand, please pick up the phone to them and encourage them to do something about them, or just take a moment to listen to them. We're coming up to the weekend, and the sun is going to be shining very well this weekend, and it looks like we're going to be able to spend more time with our loved ones. But still, remember that there will be people that don't have that advantage. So please reach out. Really, really important. Good morning, Chichi. Oh,
good morning again.
So, oh my gosh, 39 years as a double bassist, a professional double bassist. I mean, yes, obviously you started before that, learning and all the rest of it, but what a legacy to kind of have. How did that all start?
Well, the actual music side of my life, started at home. I can remember actually what I think of as my very first music lesson was actually being in my father's village in Nigeria, and I was about 2.5 years of age, and he was holding me in his arms. We were standing just outside the house, on the balcony, and it was one of those incredible nights where there was so many millions of stars in the sky that you felt that you could just put your hand up and reach and pluck one. And I was asking him what they were, these bright shining things. And it was my first moment of being conscious that that was my dad as well. And he told me that what they were, and so they were called stars, and proceeded to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star and teach me that song. And I still think of that as my first music lesson. He always sang, my father, and he played the organ and in his church growing up, and we always were singing and at home. And I think when I was 6 years old at my primary school in Kent near Canterbury, where one day, I was that child that was always bouncing off every single wall in the classroom, the one that they would be dishing out the ADHD tablets to today. I literally was overactive, well, more active than everybody else around me, it seemed. And it was the day when the teacher said, "Who wants to be in?" And my hand was up before she'd finished the sentence. And the end of that was recorder ensemble. So that's what I started. I joined recorder ensemble at the age of 6. Completely hooked on it. We had sheet music on a music stand right from day one. So we were learning to read the music and process it. It was telling us what to do with our fingers, making us listen to what the sounds were coming out. So we're having to analyze all these things at the same time. And then I rapidly progressed through the descant recorder and was promoted to the treble recorder. And literally the first treble recorder lesson, when everybody else was playing the descant line and I was playing a different accompanying line, I discovered harmony. And that was when the hook went in, when I knew that I had to have music in my life because of the way it made me feel and this new sensation of being part of these different harmonies that changed and how they affected you. And then I discovered the piano at a friend's house a year later and kept going around there every day to play on it until they finally wheeled the piano up the road and gave it to me. That's one way to get rid of a child.
I love it. Good morning, Kenneth. Lovely to see you here. Thank you so much for being here. Oh my goodness. So then how did that progress on to, getting into college or conservatoire? How did that progress?
Well, I carried on with my piano lessons, but a year after that, when I was 8, I was spotted by a sprint coach, you see, and that kind of very much took over the real focus and priority in my mind, because music was just going on anyway at home. There was never a sort of pressured situation to practice. Never once in my life did my parents ever say, "Chichi, go practice." We lived in this little house with 3 bedrooms, 5 children, and 1 living room and 1 kitchen. And the piano was in the living room. So if I wanted to practice the piano, unless everybody wanted to listen to it, they had to get out of the house. They still berate me for it today, my younger siblings. I'm the oldest of the 5. And of course, my dad would sit there just saying, loving every note. And everybody else was, just having to put up with it. But I just loved it. And it just developed. I became the church organist at the age of 9. My first job, it was our local village in Blean near Canterbury. The organist moved away, and the priest knew that I was learning the piano, and maybe he thought I needed occupying as well. I think I was probably too hectic in Sunday school, and so he said, "Would I like to play at Sunday school the organ?" And I said, "Yes." I mean, I did, as usual. I didn't think. I just said yes, and all it meant was that he had to figure out what hymns he wanted in a week's time, give me the hymns so that I could practice them. And so I just added that to my practice, and I just loved it. I loved having that thing, and being the oldest child of 5 children, I never really had that experience of being I never had that experience really of being having much one-to-one with my parents, because my brother Gus, he's only 11 and a half months younger than me. The twins were born a year and a half after him. And so, it just went, we were very close in age. And so to have a piano teacher, that one-to-one, was a really amazing experience for me. And I loved it. I loved my piano teacher. And then my sprint coach from the age of 8, another one-to-one. And these were all, even though they seem like polar opposites, they're actually very, very similar set of skills and disciplines that I was learning at that young age. You know, the concentration, the coordination, the listening, the timing, all comes into both of those practices. And then, so I carried on. I was sprinting at national level by the age of 17. I was preparing. I just missed qualifying for Munich when I was 16 for the 100 meters. And then it was literally in between those Montreal and Munich and Montreal, when I was asked to play in a women's football game. And I just said yes. Again, I didn't think. It was a helping out Reading Ladies Football Club. I didn't even know that women had a football league at that stage. My brothers play football, and I used to go and watch them play a lot. And I know the game of football and love and actually love it. Bless you. And so of course, I turned up, and every time I got the ball, I was off like a sprinter. And you know, until the other team made sure I couldn't run anymore. And I literally ended up in hospital, and my career was finished in seconds. It was a very devastating and shocking time. I had a very nasty complete dislocation of my knee. And that, I say, you know, when things happen, I do believe they happen for a reason, because I think another door something else became available. You know, I had to wait a few weeks before actually going into hospital. You know, they have to make your appointment for the surgery and all of that. And so during that time, because I used to live either in my school uniform or my tracksuit. I didn't have play clothes. I didn't do anything else. I was in my tracksuit and training, or I was at school. And then, or doing the sports at school and county. And during that extra time at home, I just thought I had to keep active. I couldn't train because of my knee all bandaged up. So I just did extra piano practice. And so what happened then was I was thinking, I knew that the school, by then I was living in Berkshire, and I was at Kendrick Girls Grammar School. And I knew the school had a music competition, which I always thought was a bit strange, because people of all different instruments applied for the competition. And I thought, how can you judge something like that? It's like putting the 100 meters against the pole vault. How does that work? You know, how can you judge a bassoon against a piano? Anyway, I thought, well, I'll just go in for this competition. My last year at school, I'll have a go at this thing. And I practiced some Chopin, and I won the competition. And I didn't really think anything else about it, because I just thought, you know, I didn't feel the thrill, because I was used to winning a sprint and knowing what that feels like. You know, when you've got your competitors right next to you, you're all trying to beat each other at exactly the same moment. But the music competition, you go on one after the others. It's a different feeling.
Yeah.
And so I then went off to hospital for 2 weeks. And the day I came back to school, John Dusek, who's head of music at the school, fell into step with me and said, Chichi, the whole school's, you know, devastated. We think you're probably one of the most musical girls in the school. And I was doing A-level music. I was still singing in the madrigal choir and playing in the recorder ensemble. He said, we think you should, if you could take up an unpopular orchestral instrument, you could have a career in music. And of course, I had no idea what he was talking about, because a career in music is not something that my family was in any way connected to. And so I just let him lead me to a room in the school. In that room stood 2 double basses. And I looked at him and I said, have you noticed how I'm only 5 foot tall? They'd be the biggest instruments in the and so the school had an orchestra, but nobody played the double bass. He said, you've got an immediate job if you do this, Chichi. And by the way, when you won the music prize 2 weeks ago before going into hospital, the prize is that the school pays for instrumental lessons until you leave the school. So put that prize to good work. And a week later, I was having my first double bass lesson. And it was love at first sight. And the rest, as they say, is history.
I think that's such a beautiful... Gabby's just saying another very interesting life. Indeed, Gabby. So that kind of athleticism in the mind and in the physical body was already imprinted in you before, because they say that every musician is an athlete, and I do believe that, And so, but you had all these principles in your physical body as well. I mean, I just think that's amazing.
Yes, it's true. I was so lucky. Nadine, if that accident had happened 6 months later, I would have left the school. Yeah. I wouldn't have had that guidance. I wouldn't have known to turn to something like that. Yeah. And so I then went off to Cambridge and had a crash course at it's now called the, it was Cambridge College of Arts and Technology. Yeah, yeah. And as soon as I got to Cambridge, all of the university just grabbed me, because there was only one other double bass player in Cambridge at the time. And there's so much music making going on there. Yeah. And so I was learning. I was just thrown in the deep end. I was often the only double bassist at, Jesus College concert, King's College concert, Corpus, comes the University Orchestra. I was just in all of the orchestras, and I had a 2-year crash course. And then I won a place at the Royal Academy of Music.
Oh, wow.
With piano. Piano was still going, it was my second study. But I'd gone way past grade 8 on the piano at that stage. But I hadn't reached grade 8 when I applied to the academy. I was on grade 7.
Oh, my gosh. Rebecca Louise Dale was saying, oh, that's just so brilliant. And it is. It's just wonderful to hear how, but you also, I do think that mental focus is something that has followed you through, it sounds like.
Yes. I mean, those things, people live by those graded numbers as well. And I don't think it's about, some people, when some of our Chineke juniors audition to me, they say, I'm about to do my grade 6 or something. I say, okay, well, the standard is, but they're playing at a higher level, and their performance, because I know that I can perform at a higher level than what grade I might have. I can look the part when I get behind the bass. Well, I could, and it's because I had such a physical application to everything.
Yes,
the way I'd been trained,
Yes, that's what I find just so exciting. Oh my gosh, we'd love to. Oh my gosh, I'd love to carry this conversation more, but I just want to move you on to, you came up with this concept of Chineke. How did that follow through from that?
Well, after a good 35 years as an international professional double bass player, playing as a principal double bass player in leading orchestras, I was always the only black person in the orchestra. And probably about 12 or so years ago, I started being invited to sit on boards. For example, the National Youth Orchestra board. And I'd never played in the National Youth Orchestra, because by the time I took up the double bass, that's the last year you could join the orchestra. And it's a very high standard youth orchestra, as you know. And the Association of British Orchestras board, I was invited to be on that board as well. And that board was very interesting because it's full of chief executives of all the major orchestras around the country. Yes, yes. They are the main orchestras of the country are members of the ABO board, and a few concert hall managers. And so I was the first actual musician to be on that board. And I wasn't the only female, but I was certainly the only person of color. Yeah. And so I started hearing, the word diversity being used quite a lot in these board meetings. Yeah. This is not a word I was hearing in the orchestra, because when you're going to work with your instrument, you go to your rehearsal, you sit and you work on a symphony or you work on a piece, and the only thing you're talking about is the music. Yeah. And you do your performance and you go and have a glass of something with your friends, or or a bite to eat, and then you go home. But suddenly being on boards where people are running these organizations, I realized that there's this huge discussion going on around the subject of diversity. So I was just sitting back and listening to this and thinking, all kinds of things flying through my head. oh, is that why I'm here? Or what can I bring to this conversation? What and of course they were dying to know what my experiences have been up until now. And so I did take on a couple of things, and I started to notice this even more, that, you know, not only was I in a massive minority, the only person, also the music we were playing was always by the same dead white men. And then I got to meet Ed Vasey, who was the culture minister at the time, and we had a couple of meetings, APBG meetings, at Westminster, and then he sort of started to take me off to one side, saying that he wanted to have a chat with me. And a couple of times he called me in on my own, just to start to chat to me about, Chichi, why do we only ever see you regularly on the international concert platform? And to begin with, I was not following him. At least I was pretending not to follow him. And I said, but what do you mean? When I go on the stage, I'm with the orchestra. And he said, no. And he was sort of trying to find a way to say the only person of colour. But when I realised what he meant, I put him out of his misery and said, okay, look, when you see me walking onto the stage, I'm going on stage to do my job. I'm a musician. I've never defined myself by the colour of my skin. So now I know what you're talking about. Let's talk about it, hey? And that's when it all started. And that, you know, I just wondered so we know about this. Can I do something about it? And the more conversations that Ed and I had, the more I realized that, you know, when you've got a Conservative Party politician talking to you about this sort of issue, diversity being important, you know, it's gone mainstream. You know, it's not just a whimsical thought. It was mainstream, and they wanted to see something happening, and they were all looking at me to do something about it. So, which meant, was I going to be prepared to run a gauntlet? You know, sorry, I had never embraced this subject throughout my entire career with any of my colleagues. And people ask me now, so why didn't you talk about this 10 years ago, Chichi, or 20 years ago? And I ask myself the same question. Why didn't I? And the only answer I can come up with was that possibly the climate wasn't conducive to that conversation, and possibly because I had no one else from my ethnicity to stand next to me and have a joint conversation with other colleagues. And I thought, I was afraid actually to get into a conversation about this kind of thing, because I didn't know how my colleagues felt. But I didn't want to get into a conversation where I would end up feeling defensive or paranoid, because I don't want to feel any of those things, because I don't feel defensive or paranoid, and I don't want to be led in that way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I really identify. I can absolutely, I just want you to hear, I can identify exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons why these things don't get talked about, and why they haven't been talked about for so many years. And then it just so happened I was invited to see the Kinshasa Orchestra playing at the South Bank. It was their 20th anniversary. The Kinshasa Orchestra from the Congo. I didn't know an orchestra like that existed, an African orchestra. Wow. And I was going with my NYO hat on. I was walking from the Waterloo station to the Royal Festival Hall. You know, it's 3 minutes walk. I bumped into Ed Vasey. And he said, oh, I expect you're going to the same concert I'm going to. I said, yeah, probably am. He said, well, come with me to the pre-concert reception. I said, well, I haven't been invited to the pre-concert reception. He said, well, you're with me, so you're coming. So we went up to the 6th floor, and we were being greeted by Gillian Moore, who's a very good friend of mine. And as we were all both saying hello to Gillian, she sort of went into sort of shock mode and sort of put her hands over her face and gasped. So I thought, oh, okay, look, I know I haven't been invited, Gillian, and Ed was saying, well, she's my guest, so she's with me. And Gillian was saying, oh no, I'm so embarrassed. You should have been on the guest list. And so I said, well, don't worry about it. But she said, well, what's worse, look over there. And over there in the corner was another friend of mine, of English violin soloist, Tasman Little, was giving an interview to a huge BBC TV camera. I didn't know at the time that the Arts Council and the BBC were making a documentary about the Kinshasa Orchestra. And they were being the orchestra was being slightly bumped up by a couple of NYO players, a couple of BBC players, a couple of Halle players. So I thought, oh, Tasman seems to be doing an interview with the BBC. And then Gillian said, yes, Chichi, but what does Tasman know about Africa? You should be doing it. You know, why, you know, I said, look, calm down, Gillian. I wasn't even invited to the reception, you know. I'm not. She said, go and stand. I said, no, I can't just put myself in front of a BBC TV. Yeah. You know, they're making a documentary. Yeah. They've got their storyboard already planned. Yeah. And you know what? There was not a single other person of colour at the reception. Interesting, isn't it? I don't think that would ever happen now. But so I said, look, it was funny because there I was. This was the moment the bubble exploded. This was my light bulb moment for Chineke. There I was in this reception room, talking to the head of music for the Kinshasa concert. I wasn't even invited. I was the elephant in the room, and I popped the bubble because of everything. It was almost laughable. And I think I could sense Ed Vasey next to me sort of punching the air because he knew I was going to get it then. So I spent almost half as much of the time watching the audience's reactions as well as looking at this wonderful orchestra. And I knew as I walked back to the station that was a Sunday evening. Monday morning, I was on the phone to everyone saying, this is what I'm going to do. And they were all saying, everyone, all the Conservatoire principals, you know, I rang Ed Vasey, I rang somebody at the Arts Council, I rang all the concert halls. Gillian and Jude said, come in tomorrow. And that's where it all started. Jude said, we're going to launch you.
Oh, amazing. I love Jude Kelly. She's fabulous.
Me too.
What a wonderful story. Teresa was just saying how interesting. My brother, who's just retired as a soloist in his teens, he had to choose between being a professional football player and a singer. You know, I mean, I just listen to him, you know, the way things have happened in life for you. But what I'm also noticing is that you've been really open to listening. You know, that has been, that's when I see, you know, you walked into the room and you were really aware, your awareness was really open. And, you know, you were being, you know, gently pushed in the right direction by Mr. Vasey, you know, and then you just grabbed hold of this thing, you know, like the athlete that you are, and just said, I'm going to run with it.
No choice. It was a very big decision to make. And of course, it rumbled a few people. I paid for it in other ways, but nothing has brought me greater joy and feeling that I've got a real purpose in every time I walk onto the stage now. It's not, you know, I've had my career. It's all those other people that I never saw throughout those 35 years. And, you know, one of the main things I learned during that time when people were saying, well, how are you going to find anybody? I mean, you know, there isn't anybody else that, you know, you're the only person that plays classical. And I was thinking, well, how do they know? Are they do they really know this? So how was I going to find an orchestra? Because I only knew 3 opera singers, Willard, Roddy and Patricia, and one viola player who was up in Edinburgh. And so I wrote to some soloist friends of mine to say, because I know they go to play with all these orchestras all over the place. If they spot someone who might look a bit like me, please put me in touch with them, you know, because I need to speak to them. And so that's how I sort of started. I just kind of went underground. I didn't hold auditions. And I thought, how would I advertise for something like this? I didn't know if it would be illegal, even though Ed Vasey wanted me to do it. How would I advertise? And if I saw an advert that was calling for BME majority people, would I apply for it? Probably not. And I just felt I needed to find people, speak to them on the phone. I spoke to everyone at least twice, and at least for a few hours. I spent hours and hours bringing these people together because I had to investigate them and see how well they played, and because these were people I'd never come across before. And the thing I learned was not to believe the popular narrative.
Yes.
Which is that, because people kept saying to me, Chichi, well, people like you, it's not really classical, it's not really your sort of music, is it? And I'd say, that's an amazing thing to say to someone who's a classical musician. You're saying it to me that people like me don't appreciate or understand classical music. So that was the first, because that's not true. And the second thing was that people of color and ethnicity aren't any good at their at instruments. Yeah. I discovered that both of those things were not true. And I was able to form an orchestra of 62 professionals walked on that stage the first night, and about 45 juniors a couple of hours earlier had their first concert.
Wow. I mean, we call that emotional contagion or social contagion. When you go through in NLP, when people are attached to the popular narrative, as you call it, it gets caught up in the belief of something without finding out whether it's real or not.
Exactly. Find out yourself. I learned for myself. And
Rebecca is saying yes. One of the things is that you were great at saying yes as well. Andrew is asking a question. Hi Nadine, could things regress if we don't stay alert? And I think that's an interesting,
brilliant question. I really think one of the things that when I did, I'm not blowing my trumpet, but two years ago, Kirsty interviewed me on Desert Island Discs. And it was an incredible interview. And she was so thorough and prepared. And she asked me very poignant questions. She wasn't trying to hedge anything. And one of the questions that she asked me was, so what's the reason for all this talk about, discrimination and what have you? And, you're all right. So why are you bothering? Well, that is a very good question. And of course, I don't want to be having this conversation in 10 years' time. But why are we not seeing this section of the creative arts totally unrepresentative of the community? In a bigger way than any other section of the arts, and especially when now I know that there are something like between 8 and 9% of BME students are at Conservatoire. Sorry, I didn't say that very well. 8 to 9% of students at the Conservatoire, the Royal Academy, are BME. But there's only 1.9% in the orchestras, and actually I think it's less than 1.6% in the orchestras, and I think it's actually less than that. That I'm looking for the 9%. I'm looking for I want to create a 9% challenge, the Chineke 9% challenge, where all the orchestras, where across the orchestras we can see 9%. Because if students are being taught, if they could get into the academy and the colleges and wherever. If they're good enough to get in and they're being taught as well as their counterparts, they should be graduating at the same level and better sometimes. And they should be able to be winning jobs. So what happens between graduation and winning a job? That's where people are falling through the net.
Yeah, I would really agree with you. I think that's the same in singing as well, opera singing as well. But when I hear talk about that, it's very, 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 very similar. Claire Pendleton Holy is saying yes, go for it, whatever it is, run with it, take the risk, everyone. Marjorie is saying, hi Nadine, wonderful woman. Indeed, she is a wonderful woman. And Stephanie Murphy is saying, haha, there isn't anyone else. Bless, I was told that two people like me don't do classical.
Don't believe it.
Don't believe it. Patrick Daly is saying greetings, huge admirer of you both from the US. Thanks, Patrick, nice to see you. And Stephanie Murphy is saying yes, 9% challenge, love it. That's just so wonderful. So, we're here in Artists in Creation 10, and it's the Chineke Foundation. So it is up and it is running and it is alive.
It certainly is.
On such a big scale, and please don't forget them to tell them about what the junior orchestra did the other day as well, because
oh my goodness. They performed on Britain's Got Talent. They were invited to do this, and of course I was a bit really, when I've seen other great artists performing on there and being beaten by dogs and things like that. And the whole thing about the people, who are judging them, who are not qualified classical musicians, but actually it was one of my juniors, because Britain's Got Talent team, they kind of contacted me a few times about it, and I was thinking, oh, are we sure we're going to do this? And then my team and one or two of the juniors said, look, Chichi, if we can win the audience and people who aren't qualified to necessary to judge classical music, then we've done an even better job, haven't we? And I thought, yes, we have. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Get over yourself, Chichi, which is what they told me. And so we went in for it, and they had they played out of their socks. They got the 4 yeses, and it's incredibly exciting. So we're waiting now to see the actual result of whether they go through to the semi-final.
That's amazing, but that's the junior orchestra.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. And even if, I thought, gosh, even if they don't go into the semi-final, go through, they've been seen, they've got something like 8 million viewers. So it's not a bad line.
Not bad at all. Well, Kenneth is just saying classical ballet and classical music share a similar history of homogeneity. The popular narrative has included people saying things like black bodies can't do classical ballet. Times are changing for both disciplines, indeed, and the opera discipline as well, Kenneth. But the change that Chichi and Chineke have achieved in less than 5 years is just extraordinary. And I would have to agree with that on so many levels. So what was it like, can you just tell us what it was like doing the first concert even?
So what was it like doing the first concert?
Yeah, doing the first concert.
That was an extraordinary feeling, because I was very nervous. I was unbelievably excited, but nothing like this had happened before. We didn't know what was going to happen, what it was going to feel like, how we would be received. Yeah. And about 2 or 3 weeks before that first concert, we discovered that we'd sold out the Queen Elizabeth Hall. And I was thinking, wow, who's coming to the concert? I knew that all my family were coming, all my book club were coming, all the press tickets had gone. And I'm thinking, so who else is coming? And when we walked out onto that stage, we come on together. We don't come on in dribs and drabs. Yeah. We come on together from both sides at the same time. We know, because you walked on as a singing with us. Yeah. And everybody engages with the audience before we sit down and start to play. And we walked on to this spine-tingling sound of people cheering, clapping, whistling, crying. I saw people crying in the audience, and it was the first time in my entire career where I was playing on my home turf, because I think of the QEH, I've played in that hall more than any other concert hall in my life, hundreds and hundreds of concerts in the Queen Elizabeth Hall. For the first time in my entire career, the audience looked like the city that I live in. Oh. And it was incredible. We opened with Samuel Coleridge-Taylor's Ballade in A minor, and I'd found members of Samuel Coleridge-Taylor's family who were in the audience. I hadn't met them yet, but we'd been on the phone to each other. I knew they were out there. Yeah. And we played some Philip Herbert as well, who wrote this incredible piece about when Stephen Lawrence was murdered. He wrote this incredible elegy. We played that as well, so that we were able to bring a living composer onto the stage to take a bow and show the audience a living black composer. And then we played Brahms and Beethoven. And the audience, these were people who came from near and far. Some people even flew from America and Europe to this concert. And there were people who came from local areas has a South Bank Centre on their doorstep, but they've never felt properly welcomed in. Now they feel they're being represented on the stage. They don't mind what we're playing. The fact is they feel the door's open to them and they're being welcomed in. Yeah. And they sat and they loved the Beethoven. Of course, they can love Beethoven just like anybody else. And what one of the most moving things that I really felt after that concert, because I didn't know how I was going to feel, was that Chineke is not just an orchestra, because of the impact it's had on so many people who are not musicians necessarily. It had social impact, it's had psychological impact, it's had well-being impact from all those people who've been uplifted by being in the audience and just seeing us. And it's all of those things.
Yes.
And an orchestra.
Yes.
And that's where I you know, is there a real place for us? Are people really listening to us? And, you know, because there's so much that just being in that space together and sharing our music with people who look, you know, we've all walked similar paths, and so we feel everyone feels very welcome.
Yeah, oh my gosh, Rebecca Louise was saying so incredibly moving. Stephanie Murphy is saying feeling emotional.
Oh.
I mean, I once again, I'll just say, you know, I remember being so moved, you know, because, oh my gosh, you're all going to get me started now. But I was moved because I had been doing my own journey in the classical world, you know, and I had felt so incredibly alone.
Yes.
And
you don't realize it until
I didn't realize it until I was sitting watching all of you play.
Yeah, and you've since appeared with us as a soloist.
Yeah, and I've appeared,
amazing.
You know, and in that second concert that you did at the Royal Festival Hall, and I was sitting next to Ronald Sam, as I said, and it just made me understand I'm not alone anymore.
That's right.
And the fight and the struggle and the, you know, the not never being allowed to make a mistake because you're the only one there.
Yes, that's right. I know we don't.
You know, and then for the first time I was like, it's all been worth it when I do that.
We can lean on each other, and we can feel, you know, the beautiful thing is that at the end of a Chineke project, everybody goes back to being, you know, being the only person in their youth orchestra, in their orchestra, in where it was Vienna, Dublin, Paris, Newcastle, Nottingham, Canterbury, everywhere. Everyone scatters back across, mostly UK, but across Europe and a few in America, goes back to being this other singular unit. Yeah. But when we come to Chineke, nobody is the odd one out. Not a single person is the odd one out. Everyone belongs, even the white people, because white people play with us as well. We do have a, you know, we're minority white people. No, I mean, I've received emails from white people saying, Chichi, I wish I was black. And I say, really? What, give up all of your, and why do you say that? And they say, I want to play with the Chineke Orchestra. I said, well, you don't have to be black. You have to share our philosophy, want to be part of change, and be damn good at what you do. Like, we have to be beyond good to play with you guys. So join the club, you're welcome. And the most beautiful emails I receive after projects usually come from the white people saying, I've never been made to feel more welcome in any orchestra. I freelance with all the orchestras, and yet I've never been made to feel more welcome than I did with the Chineke Orchestra. And I've never felt so much purpose walking on that stage. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, it is incredible. I mean, but what, and you saying that is, you know, that nobody's excluded. It is still an inclusive space for everybody. It's not about there being an exclusion. Anthea Parishchak is saying, I absolutely love this. It's so heartwarming and full of love for you two. And Stephanie Murphy says, goodness, this is the classical counselling session I should have had 40 years ago. Stephanie, thank you. Kenneth is saying, I'll never forget that incredible moment. 60 plus Chineke musicians walked on the Q8 stage for the inaugural concert. The audience gasped. We'd never seen anything like this. We gave the musicians a standing ovation before they'd even played a note. Yes, thank you. And Rebecca,
thank you. It was a moving experience. I had an email. I bumped into John Snow, the Channel 4 newsreader, about 4 months later. And he came up to me and he said, I was at that concert, and I was one of the people crying in the audience. And it was amazing. You know, I didn't know he was there, so that was lovely.
Yeah, I just love that. I love that. You know, I've got my mental scheme. Everybody can as well, and we do an opera as well. And it for us as well. It's about inclusion. It's about everybody having a place.
Yeah,
you know, we're not pushing anybody out, but you know, you have to, as you say, share the philosophy.
Yeah,
share the philosophy. Have the thinking, you know, and then anyway, I would love to hear, you know, and so would everybody, what are your tips kind of everybody this morning?
It's all very well, but you know, I wish I could listen to my own tips sometimes.
You have that.
You know, in an ideal world, my tips would be something like always, you know, I think the English are often the super cynics of the world, and in a sort of charming way, but in a reality way as well. But I've always been one of those people that when someone says, no, you can't do something, I always try and find a way that I can do it. And so my one tip, piece of advice would be to always look for the positive aspects of any situation that you might find yourself in.
Yes.
That's one.
Yes.
Another tip that I would, one of these things when, what would you tell your younger self kind of thing, I would remind myself to be even more courageous, even though people always thought I was courageous because I was a sport winner and things like that. But really, truly listen to your instincts and enjoy your authenticity and not be remotely embarrassed or awkward about being a bit different in any way, and make the most of being truly individual.
Yes.
So that's my second tip. And my third tip would be, this is the one I have to really, this is the hardest one for me because it goes in conflict to how I've lived most of my life, which is to try and, when I react to something, to instead of speaking, I just to try and think my thoughts through before it actually comes out of my mouth. And it's called editing your thoughts, I suppose. But but the thing is, as I've been trained, when I was at the height of my sprinting, I had the fastest start in Great Britain. And so I'm used to not thinking. I'm just used to going with the first moment that gun goes off, I am down that track. And so that's in my DNA. And so I have to just try and think quicker before saying sometimes.
Yeah.
I know that is an issue, where I know I sometimes speak too quickly.
They say in coaching terms, as a coach, we say respond, don't react. Making a response is about taking a moment, just exactly what you're saying.
I like that. Respond, don't react. That's very good.
Yeah. Because they say when you respond, you're in control. When you react, you're not. They're in control. That's
okay. Yeah. Good words.
When you react, they're in control. So that's really good.
Yeah.
Teresa is just saying you are incredible. Thank you. Louise Dale is saying that is your brilliance to you. And Sani is saying morning, Sani.
Morning.
And where can we find you? Where can we find?
Well, our website is www.chineke.org.
Yes. Okay.
And if you want to write to people at Chineke, it's just our Christian name.
Yeah.
At Chineke. It's Chichi at Chineke.org. Chichi without the hyphen, or Stephen Carpenter, Stephen at Chineke.org. And so those are our email addresses. And I've got a personal website, but I tell you, since I started Chineke, I have absolutely neglected everything to do with the self. I really do need to be taken in hand, because all of my energy. I mean, yesterday my first meeting was at 9 a.m, and I finished my work at about 9:15 in the evening, and I literally didn't have even a sandwich. I literally, it's just absolutely 12 hours a day, usually most days. But there's so much to do, and I just feel, gosh, I'm at this age now, and I want to be here to see, because right now, if we were to stop, if Chineke were to stop, I'm afraid the effort would be seriously hindered, all the good work that's been started. And especially now during this pandemic, we have to work even harder to stay relevant and present in the minds of the audiences and the people who fund us and support us. We've got to keep them engaged. And so when we were told we could not go and play here, there and everywhere, which we included an American tour, all sorts of things, Brighton Festival, Paris, Edinburgh Festival, Wigmore Hall, more things at the South Bank. I had the overwhelming urge to perform, not just for myself, but with other people. So I reached across the ocean and formed some partnerships with Sphinx and Orchids and Sphinx in Detroit, Orchids in Baltimore, and Yola in Los Angeles. and we've made this incredible recording between the Sphinx Orchestra and the Chineke Orchestra, professional orchestra, and we've got 9 conductors because it's been released onto the website, and we've got lots more in the can that are being developed and produced at the moment. I finished recording my part for another project last night. That's what I was doing up until 9 last night, 9:30, and more of that. The juniors have got some incredible things happening. They've been invited to, I probably shouldn't say it until it's announced, but the juniors are doing, look out for the juniors and watch our website. And also there's something else I need to tell you about that, but I can't remember it right now.
I'll say what I was going to say, because you were talking about the self-care bit, and I'm going to just teach what I've been teaching everybody. If all of you are on Zoom all day, please, as a coach right now, I am saying every 50 minutes, even if it's only for 5 minutes, can you please breathe? Yeah, remember the one that Brian Colbert, he's coming back with us on Monday. You know, the breathe, you fall through the nose, you hold for 4, and then out for 8 through the nose. 3 times to get your body back in get yourself back in your body. Hydrate, drink a glass of water, and stretch, please, 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 between these Zoom calls. Your brain needs oxygen. It needs to be diverted. It needs to be rebooted before you take on the next lot of calls. Please, it's for your own self-care. I'm begging you all right now. So Stephanie is saying, be positive, be courageous, respond, don't react. Wow, we listen all day. That was what you said, your tips. Stephanie's saying that collaboration across the ocean was fab. And Kenneth is saying, such a sparky conversation. Thank you. Next time round, can we see Chichi interviewing Nadine? I'm sure we can.
Bring it on. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. I'm sure that we would be very open to that. Absolutely. And, you know, can we also just at the moment, Chichi and I felt that we haven't got the time to discuss this right now, but, you know, but we will do an exercise around it on Monday with Brian, actually. But Chichi and I just want to just mention, and if we could take at least 30 seconds right now for George Floyd, who lost his life in broad daylight, and we couldn't be in the same space together without recognizing what happened to one of our brothers in the States, and it could happen at any time. So we need to, if we could just take 30 seconds of just silence, and we're just gonna remember him. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Just to take that moment. Thank you. It's just, we couldn't pass without doing that. Susan is saying, a very fulfilled, interesting life. Loved the tips. Thank you so much. Stay safe, both of you. And Sani says, I'm late to the convo. Was your need to perform part of self-care? He's asking.
No, it was just, as a child, I just did things instinctively. And I was fortunate enough to have parents who tolerated all my habits and energy, and in fact encouraged us all to follow our hearts and dreams. They're very strict about our education, of course. It's very Nigerian. My father was Nigerian, but they had this strong commitment to us loving what we did. And when a child is allowed and encouraged to excel in something that they're naturally good at, rather than being forced to do something that they don't know much about, that's the beginning of a happy, successful life. And that's what makes me so frustrated and mad with what's going on in schools, state schools in England at the moment, where the two subjects, music and sports, are just being ripped out of all the state schools. And of course, engineering and maths and science and English are important, but not at the expense of all of the creative and physical subjects. Every child needs to be able to have a critical mind. It teaches, critical behavior and how to be adventurous, how to think outside of the box. We need creative, critical thinkers, and art subjects and sport subjects teachers. You learn those skills when you're doing those subjects, and of course, every person who learns the other academic subjects is not going to necessarily thrive in those subjects, but the confidence that a child that's naturally good at sport, of course, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it shouldn't be taken away for those children who only thrive and do well outside of the classroom, don't get to excel at all at school because they're not allowed to do the subjects that they're naturally good at. And I think we all have a duty of care to campaign to fight for those subjects to be kept in all of the state schools. The public schools keep them because they know they're important and they can pay for it.
You're just an incredible woman. Thank you so much for taking all this time to be with us here today. The work that you've done is just so inspiring. You have helped change a nation, and
Thank you, Nadine.
I just find you just incredible. I'm speechless. I don't really know what to say. I just, because there are not enough words to explain, the magnificence of the work that you've done. And I know it would have been really, really challenging at times, but you've kept the focus, you've kept that fearlessness, you've kept that bravery. You've been open to accepting the support that is needed. You have led with great openness and tenacity and freedom and joy, as well as excellence and quality and standard. I really celebrate you, Chichi, and I just thank you so much.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And if there's one last sentence I could say, just for anyone who, when things go wrong and things, happen to you, at the moment everyone's worried about what might happen next. And, I grew up with knowing that one of these catchphrases, when one door closes, another one will open. And I was always a bit concerned about that phrase, because I just thought, it's just going to open for me and I don't have to do anything for it. That sort of suggests just, sitting and waiting for someone else to do something for you. And I've never been that sort of child. That phrase never worked for me. And so I've developed that, and I just say, when one door closes, open it.
Yes.
Hang on. When one door closes, open it. It's a door. That's what doors do. Your face. I thought you'd like that one. But do you know what I mean?
I do.
Don't blame anyone else.
Oh my gosh. I meant to do that. I never went in that way, but
that's what doors do.
They open. It's why when I say to people, you make a goal, but you have to take action straight away towards that goal. You can't just wait for the goal to happen.
Absolutely. You've had your place, and you've switched careers.
Yes.
You had to open that door. You did that, Nadine.
Yeah.
That, you know, that's what doors do. That's what they're there for. They're there to be opened.
Yeah.
And if no one's going to open it for us, I learned to open that door myself.
Yes.
I had to. No one was going to do it for me.
Yes. And that's what I learned.
Mm.
And it's the best piece of advice you could give anybody right now. And I thank you for that, because, you know, I'm really concerned that we're in this time now, and not everybody, I'm going to not to presuppose that everybody, but I've heard from lots of other artists, you know, what we're going to do, start opening doors, everybody. Start opening doors. What doors have been closed?
Remember my mantra.
Yeah, just open those doors.
Yeah. They're there to be opened.
Yeah.
It's believing in yourself and opening it.
Yeah.
In that first step.
Yeah. So, sorry if I don't say your name right, but I think it's Chinello. Really enjoyed this. I grew up listening to classical music and playing musical pieces in high school. Such an awesome experience and a strong link to learning. Sani is saying America is eating itself. Danny is saying they teach logic but not tuition. Anthea is saying Chichi for schools minister. Yes! And Chinello is saying, listening here from the US, thank you for this. Alison Child saying, a wonderful start to my day, inspiring, thank you. Stephanie Matthews saying, you're right, as a retired teacher, that was so frustrating. Gabby Tubbs is saying, what an incredible ambassador. Teresa is saying, thank you, Nadine, for opening these doors for us. And Stephanie is saying, yes. Rebecca Louise Dell is saying, brilliant, made me laugh. Anthea is, you know, everybody's saying yes, yes, yes to your last statement. And they're there to be open. That's what doors do. Yes. On that, you know, because there's no other way to leave this, but open your own door.
Open your own door.
And on Sunday, I'm going to do a pre-record. I've done a pre-record with the wonderful Dr. Carlos Conde from Puerto Rico, and he is a vocal consultant and a vocal pedagogue, and he's going to tell his story here on Sunday at 3:00 live on the Facebook session. And yeah, I mean, thank you, Chichi. I guess I want to hug you right now. This social distance hug.
Big hug to you too.
Thank you so much. Remember that it's the weekend, everybody. Please, please, please schedule your weekend, plan your weekend, even if it's only Netflix time. Please empower yourself. Know what you're going to do. Don't let yourself go off into, oh my God, I can't be bothered anymore. Da, 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 da. Empower yourself, plan your time, be directive. It's your life. Open your own door. Anyway, I'll see you later. Have a fab weekend, everybody. And thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.